Hey YouTube, this is your girl Bree. Welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be talking about what submission truly looks like, and today we're going to be referencing Abraham's story in Genesis chapter 22. So let's go ahead and dive right into it. God gave Abraham a command. The command was to sacrifice his one and only son, the son in which he loved so dearly. And the highlight of the story is that Abraham didn't hesitate. Abraham didn't question God. He didn't hesitate and question whether or not he heard God's voice correctly or anything like that. Abraham decided to follow God's command the very next day and journey to this land called Moriah. Those were the instructions that God had given him to journey to this land. That's where he'll go to make the sacrifice, right? So Abraham, reached his destination. He laid his son on the altar. He happened to notice this ram out caught up by his horns in a thicket, and that's when he grabbed the knife and was getting ready to make that sacrifice. At that moment, the angel of the Lord called to Abraham and told him not to lay a hand on his son. And instead of sacrificing his son, he was able to sacrifice the ram. And the thing that I love about the story is that God, not only did Abraham show what true faith and obedience to God look like, he also knew and trusted that God wasn't gonna just cause him to kill his son. But if that was the case, he was willing to be obedient. And that was God's test to Abraham to see, do you really have the fear of the Lord? And sadly enough, a lot of us don't. There's things right now that we're sitting on, gifts that we're sitting on, because we don't want to relinquish our will and our way to fully submit to God. And the thing about it is that is maybe the reason why we're seeing delay in our life. We feeling like we're stagnant in this place where everybody else is moving along and getting blessed and things like that. And some people may say, well Bree, like that doesn't make sense. Like God loves us, right? God is Jehovah Jireh, right? He will provide. Yes, but there's certain things that God requires of us. And even with this same story in Genesis 22, because God tested Abraham, and Abraham passed the test. Because he passed that test, you can see in the later verses of that same chapter that God blessed Abraham. God blessed the descendants of Abraham, the nations of Abraham, just because he obeyed. So now do you see that maybe that's the reason why you're not getting blessed? Maybe that's why God is not answering your prayer. That maybe that's why he's not answering the prayers of those around you. Maybe he's wanting you to step out on faith. Maybe he's wanting you to obey him and fully submit to him. Y'all are so afraid to step out into the wilderness. Don't you know that the wilderness is much safer than your comfort zone? And I can fully attest to that, because I remember when God commanded me to do something. And this was years ago. God commanded me to step away from underneath my family. He said that my family would be the very thing that was going to hinder me from being all that he called me to be. And that was a scary thing. But I obeyed. God's will for my life meant way more than being under the wings of my family. And I remember during that time, people was like, girl, are you crazy? Girl, you sleeping in your car. Girl, you have nobody. But truth be told, I had God. He was all that I needed. I wasn't out there long. Because again, he's Jehovah Jireh. He provided. I didn't go without food. I didn't go without his protection. I remember getting kind of weary during that time. And I wanted to reach out to some of my extended family members. And God said, no, because I want you to trust me. I want you to fully rely on me in this season. And it's so funny that even in your wilderness season, Satan always got to send somebody too. And see, that's why you have to use discernment to know whether or not that person that is being sent to you is sent by God or sent by the devil. I remember being in that car wondering, like, God, how long? I had peace. I was content. We could have rolled it out for weeks at a time, even months at a time, because I knew that God was protecting me. And so, two guys, that's just always happened to me when I'm in the will of God and I'm doing, what God is instructing me to do, and I'm all tuned in to that. God, the devil always sends distractions, and it's always in the form of a friend or a man. And I remember he sent this guy that my mom was trying to get me to date. This guy was like super older, and she was, my mom just kind of set in that little Gen X, time to where women, you got this education, you got, all of these things, but you still need an older man. You still need somebody to take care of you. And so she was trying her hardest to, get me to date that guy. And I was like, man, God ain't tell me to date, ain't told me nothing about trying to, date this dude, or whatever. Like, he's giving all types of red flags. Like, I'm not going to do it. Like, I would stay out here until the Lord cracked the sky, baby. I am not doing it. And so I remember the guy, he reached out to me, and it was another guy too that reached out to me for my job or whatever. And oddly enough, both of these guys both said the same thing. And they both said, Bree, I feel like you in some type of trouble. I feel like maybe your life is in danger. Now, I hadn't talked to neither one of these guys and I don't know how long or whatever. Because again, they both were giving red flags. So I haven't talked to them, like I said, in a long time. And they both called me during that time now, talking about they feel like something is going on with me and I'm in some type of trouble. Now, most people would think, oh, wow, God, thank you. You just sent, somebody to help me in this season. I knew God didn't send them in. And I told them, I said, y'all are not sent by God. Therefore, I'm going to stay out here and wait on God to give me my next instruction. They both said the same thing at the end of that conversation. They both said, oh, well, Bree, you must think I'm going to try to touch you. I'm like, to be honest, I didn't. Yeah, y'all both offered me a place to stay. One had an extra room in the house. The other had an extra room. I didn't necessarily decline the offer because I was afraid that y'all might try to touch on me or get in the bed with me, which one of likely this what y'all going to do. But I was like, no, I declined because God didn't tell me that y'all were going to be the ones to help me. God didn't send you. And I was like, Bree, so you're going to pass over a hot meal, a nice warm bed to sleep in your car? I said, yeah, absolutely. Y'all, tell me why I declined. I stood heavily on that decision. And my grandfather called me the very next day and say, hey, you're not going to sleep out there another night. I have an extra bed. I want you here, and I want you here today. Now, what if I had gotten so afraid? What if I had gotten in my own head and felt like God had abandoned me in that moment? The devil would have had me. There's no way around it. He would have had me. But I fully relied on God. I fully trusted God and trusted what he was doing in my life. I accepted being out in the wilderness because, again, I felt the safest I've ever felt. And that's why I want to encourage you guys through my own personal testimonies, through the many testimonies in the Bible. You can rely on them. You can trust them. You can relinquish your way of doing things and fully submit to God's plans for your life. Just imagine how far you can go. How much God can truly bless you, your descendants, your family, your whole entire bloodline. Just by you deciding to follow God and trust him enough to do what he says. Do the very thing that you're afraid to do. He's gonna be with you. Oh, there's no doubt. He's gonna protect you. I remember being in that car, parking my vehicle at a hospital, and the angels of God encamped around the entire vehicle. Because when I parked at the hotel, the hotel management knocked on my window and said, no, you have to go, or we're going to call the police on you. I said, God, what now? Where do I go? He said, you can go to the hospital around the corner. I camped out there in my vehicle for an entire week. The custodial worker was out there every single night sweeping the parking lot. I didn't have tinted windows back then. They could have reported me too. But she didn't. She continued to sweep that parking lot. And I know she saw me in there. And she saw my stuff. But again, when you're submitted to God and his will, you don't have to worry about a thing. Do you hear me? But that concludes today's video. I hope you were inspired and encouraged by today's video. Happy Mother's Day. Mother's Day will be the day that I, release this video. So happy Mother's Day to anybody who's watching, who are mothers, soon to be mothers. Until next time, be blessed.